I'm laying in a New York City hospital bed, also known as hell. And there's an IV in my arm. I hear equipment beeping, and my hands are clammy, and I'm hyperventilating, and my thoughts are racing, and I'm surrounded by the sounds of suffering. I receive a text message on my phone about just one of the many people who I owe money to for tonight's event. My boyfriend is on the phone, pacing back and forth, trying to explain to people exactly what happened. I'm also trying to explain to the doctor that I'm not having a heart attack, but a panic attack, and that I'm suicidal and need to be transferred to psych. You see, when I was 16 years old, I escaped a toxic and dysfunctional household and left to New York City seeking validation and love that I couldn't find unconditionally elsewhere. And I also wanted to pursue my dreams of music. So 10 years later, it's my big night, and I have released a critically acclaimed album. And there is a venue full of my peers and writers and important individuals in the industry, as well as people who I really don't want to piss off. Filled the venue awaiting an arrival that would never come. When they realized that I wouldn't be arriving, this was a little beyond missing your own party. The responses were so cruel and insensitive that I'd almost wished that I got in a car accident on the way to the show instead, because at least that would validate what I was experiencing. And at least it wouldn't be seen as a choice to be here in the fetal position, unable to deliver. I pride myself on always being able to deliver under pressure, and I was in charge that night. A lot of people were getting paid by me, and I was in charge of making sure that the show ran smoothly. In that moment, I could not rise to the occasion, and I found myself shrinking back into the child who had to spring up to an adult and could only utter words about someone I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. And I said, I need my mom. So I packed my things and I went to visit her, fighting through the emotion that if I took this time to go off the grid, I would be forgotten or replaced or labeled as someone who cannot be relied upon. But I worked through that feeling and I stayed. And my mother created an oasis for me. She flooded my world with positivity and created an environment that was dedicated to my healing, and promised me that by the time I left, I'd be eating again, sleeping again, and maybe even laughing again. So I took that time, I went to the beach, I felt the sand on my toes and the water on my skin and the sun in my face. I went to Disney World and reconnected with my inner child. And one day my mother and I were driving in the car, and she grabbed my hand while listening to a very powerful sermon. And she grabbed it so tightly, and we were both hysterical. And her grip was so tight that I could feel our broken relationship mending in that exact moment. And throughout this entire time of rehabilitation, I realized that if I didn't take the time to take care of myself, that the time would find me, and that it wouldn't care what the stakes were or what I had planned on doing that day. I also learned that all the accolades, all of my ambitions to be beloved, to be successful, that none of it would matter, that it would be completely meaningless if I was not whole and healthy to experience that and to maintain it for myself. So, in the midst of this lesson, for the first time in 8 years, I put an away message up on my business email that read, "Nitty is not available today."
Yeah.